The A-10 Warthog's replacement keeps failing. Here's why the Air Force can't kill it. For more than 10 years, the United States Air Force has tried to retire one of its own aircraft, not because it has failed in combat, but because the service has repeatedly concluded that the aircraft should no longer fit the budget priorities of modern warfare. Each year, the plan appears again. Retire the A-10 Thunderbolt II, better known as the Warthog, and move resources toward other programs. And each year, Congress interrupts that plan.
By 2026, the fight became unusual. Lawmakers did not merely delay retirements or reduce how fast the Air Force could draw the fleet down. They created a new legal framework designed to force the Air Force to prove that a true replacement, specifically for close air support, was ready. In effect, they told the Air Force, "You may retire the A-10, but only when you can show that the mission it performs has truly been taken over."
To understand why this one aircraft has survived decade after decade of attempted elimination, it helps to understand what it is and why it was built the way it was. The A-10 entered service in 1977. Its defining feature is the GAU-8 Avenger, a 7-barrel rotary cannon so prominent that the aircraft was essentially shaped around it. Instead of fitting a gun into an existing airframe, engineers designed the plane around the weapon.
The cannon fires 30mm rounds intended to defeat armored vehicles and to strike targets at close range with decisive force. And to anyone who has heard a Warthog firing, there is another part of its identity, the deep, fast, buzzing sound that earned it the nickname Bert.
Yet the gun alone does not explain the loyalty it inspires. The A-10 was built for a specific kind of work, flying low and slow over a battlefield, protecting soldiers on the ground, and surviving intense ground fire while doing it. The cockpit sits within heavy protection, often described as a titanium bathtub, built to resist small arms fire and shrapnel. The aircraft uses 2 engines mounted high on the body, separated so that the loss of one does not automatically doom the aircraft. Systems are designed with redundancy, including hydraulics that can fail without instantly losing control of the jet. Even when multiple systems are damaged, the A-10 can still be flown with manual inputs. There are documented accounts of A-10s returning to base after sustaining severe damage. A wing nearly shot off, one engine lost, and holes in the fuselage large enough that they appear almost unreal in photographs. Those stories matter because close air support is inherently dangerous. When an aircraft must repeatedly place itself in the line of fire to help people on the ground, the ability to survive becomes not just a feature, but the foundation of the mission. The A-10 exists because of a hard lesson drawn from Vietnam. In that conflict, American pilots found success using older, propeller-driven aircraft, particularly the A-1 Skyraider, for close air support. These aircraft could fly low enough and slowly enough to visually identify targets and to loiter over them. Most importantly, they could endure ground fire while continuing the job. After Vietnam, the Air Force decided it needed a purpose-built attack aircraft for that specific role. In the late 1960s, it issued formal requirements. 2 major companies responded. Fairchild Republic produced a prototype designated the YA-10. Northrop offered the YA-9. The aircraft competed, flew trials against each other, and in 1973, the Air Force selected the YA-10. The program entered service in 1977 as the A-10 Thunderbolt II. From the start, the Warthog was not intended to be a general-purpose solution. It was built for one narrow mission, at a time when much of the Air Force was moving toward faster, more expensive multi-role jets. That design philosophy becomes central to the current political argument. The A-10 remains one of the best tools the United States military has for delivering gunfire in close proximity to friendly troops.
The Air Force, however, views that kind of aircraft as increasingly difficult to justify when it must compete for funding with next-generation fighters, stealth platforms, bombers, and space-related priorities. For the Air Force, the problem has never been as simple as the A-10 does not work. The dispute is about opportunity cost. Each additional A-10 squadron consumes funding, maintenance capacity, spare parts, and flight time, resources that could support other fleets.
In the mid-2010s, the service began making formal retirement proposals more consistently. The logic was that other aircraft, and increasingly drones, could handle close air support. Over time, that became the argument offered to Congress. The A-10 should retire because its role could be replaced. But each proposed replacement ran into a similar obstacle. It did not match the A-10's combination of endurance, survivability, and close air support effectiveness. The alternatives often looked impressive in broad mission categories, yet they struggled to replicate what the Warthog uniquely does. In the 1990s, there were efforts to adapt fast jets, including variations of the F-16, into roles intended to cover close air support. More recently, between 2017 and 2019, the Air Force ran an initiative called OAX, a light attack experiment. The concept was straightforward. If cheaper aircraft could cover some close air support tasks, then expensive jets could be used elsewhere. OAX evaluated propeller-driven aircraft such as the A-29 Super Tucano and the AT-6 Wolverine, aircraft that are far less costly to operate than high-performance fighters. The Air Force did buy small numbers of A-29s, suggesting the program found value. However, those acquisitions did not become a full replacement for the Warthog fleet. The reason is not hard to understand. The aircraft that OAX tested can be capable, but the A-10's mission profile remains difficult to duplicate. The Warthog can loiter low over friendly forces, it can visually identify targets near troops in ways pilots and observers consider practical in real time, and it can deliver punishing, sustained gunfire with a level of survivability tuned to the danger of ground fire. In Washington, opponents of retirement delivered a consistent critique. They argued that alternatives can be complementary but not substitutable. A fast multi-role fighter may bring advanced sensors and weapons, but it was not built to do the A-10's particular kind of slow, persistent, gun-centric close air support. Speed and stealth can matter in other scenarios. They are not the deciding factor in a battlefield fight, where endurance above friendly lines and protection against ground fire determine whether close air support arrives reliably. That political dispute intensified again in 2026. At the start of that year, the Air Force still had 162 A-10s in service and planned to retire every one by the end of the year. This would have been the culmination of more than a decade of repeated attempts to conclude the retirement story. Under the annual defense authorization process, Congress previously constrained how far retirements could proceed. In 2026, lawmakers capped retirement once again, requiring that at least 103 aircraft remain in service. However, this time, some lawmakers chose a more decisive approach than the usual annual budget leverage. On July 20, 2026, Representative Abe Hamadeh of Arizona introduced a bill titled The Bolstering Recognition, Resurgence, Retention, and Remembrance of the Thunderbolt Act, House Resolution 9780. The political world quickly adopted an unofficial nickname, the Burt Act, echoing the sound of the GAU-8 firing. The bill did not simply ask the Air Force to slow down, it established multiple legal conditions. First, it required the Air Force to maintain at least 126 A-10s in service through 2033. Second, it aimed to prevent the Air Force from dismantling the supporting infrastructure that keeps the aircraft operational, maintenance depots, training pipelines, and the ecosystem of personnel and parts that sustain the fleet. The most consequential provision was the certification requirement. Under the BRRT Act, the Air Force cannot retire additional A-10s unless an appropriate senior authority signs a written certification stating that a replacement aircraft has fully taken over the Warthog's close air support mission. The language matters as much as the process. The bill defines the replacement narrowly. It must be an aircraft whose primary mission is close air support. This is the part that removes a commonly suggested candidate from consideration. For years, the Air Force has pointed to the F-35 as a possible eventual successor for a variety of roles, including providing support from the air.
But the F-35 is designed as a multi-role platform, not as a primary close air support aircraft. Under the Burt Act's definition, naming an advanced multi-role fighter as a replacement would not satisfy the legal requirement. That narrow definition has a strategic effect. It forces the Air Force to stop relying on general-purpose arguments and to look for something that is built to do the close air support task directly, at least in principle, and to prove it conclusively enough to pass legal review.
As of the current plan, 2 A-10 squadrons were set to remain in service through 2030, an active duty unit at Moody Air Force Base in Georgia, and an Air Force Reserve Squadron at Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri. Elsewhere, drawdowns had already begun.
The Air Force had withdrawn the last A-10s from South Korea, ending a long presence on the peninsula and leaving other aircraft to cover that regional gap. This matters for understanding the story's timeline. The A-10 was not simply kept alive unchanged by politics. Parts of the fleet were reduced. The dispute is about whether the Air Force can finish the job, fully retire the remaining aircraft by 2026 and beyond.
What makes the Burvert Act striking is that it shifts the debate from "is the A-10 obsolete" to "do we have a true mission-specific successor?" Age is not the only variable in the argument. Nobody denies that the A-10 is old. Its airframe design dates back decades. But the real question is whether the aircraft's age disqualifies it for its intended job.
A key point emphasized by those who want the aircraft to remain is that the A-10 has continued to be updated and sustained over time. Upgrades have improved sensor capability and modernized weapons compatibility. Its systems are relatively straightforward to maintain compared to newer, more complex platforms.
Its survivability features are not theoretical. They have been proven by what happens when aircraft return damaged after close air support sorties. In other words, the Air Force cannot easily win the retirement debate by claiming the A-10 is simply too old. The lawmakers pushing back have increasingly framed the issue as a functional gap.
They want assurance that if the A-10 leaves, soldiers on the ground will not lose the specific kind of aircraft they have come to rely upon. This leaves the Air Force in an unusual position heading toward 2033. The service is required to keep a smaller but real A-10 fleet flying under a framework that places the burden on the Air Force to find and certify a true replacement.
Under the BRRAT Act structure, the path to retirement exists, but only after a successor emerges that can credibly take over the close air support mission as defined by the law. If such an aircraft is developed and proven, supported by documentation and sign-offs, then the certification requirement can provide the Air Force with a lawful exit. If not, then the A-10 remains, by policy, as the still available tool for an enduring problem. Close air support is not merely another aircraft mission. It is a high-risk task performed close to friendly forces, where aircraft must survive, loiter, identify, and deliver effective fire reliably.
So, the question behind the headline becomes clearer. The Air Force cannot kill the A-10, not because it lacks plans, and not because it lacks administrative authority, but because it keeps failing to field or certify a replacement that matches the Warthog's defined purpose.
As of 2026, the replacement that satisfies the specific legal and operational standards still does not exist. Until it does, the Warthog story is not finished. It continues in the training schedules, the maintenance hangars, and the sorties that keep the aircraft ready. Precisely because, for those on the ground who need air support, BERT is not just a sound, it is a promise of direct, survivable fire where they are.